In the midst of a global conflict, a mysterious code stood between victory and defeat. A secret weapon hidden in plain sight had the power to alter the course of history. This wasn't a weapon forged in steel or stone, but in the very language of mathematics. The Enigma Code. For years, the Nazis used it to encrypt their most crucial military communications, making their plans virtually impenetrable. But what if the key to cracking this enigma wasn't in brute force, but in the brilliance of human ingenuity? Today we're diving deep into the untold story of how cryptography changed the tide of World War II, from spies and shadows to mathematicians. In labs, every twist and turn of this story could have shifted the fate of millions. But what is the true legacy of the Enigma Code, the mind behind its unraveling? Before we begin, make sure you're subscribed to our channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of our riveting deep dives into history's greatest mysteries. In war, information is power. But not just any information, secret information. Imagine you were fighting a war, and every strategic move, every military decision was being broadcast to your enemy. Victory would be impossible, right? This is where cryptography comes in. It's the art of protecting information by transforming it into an unreadable format, one that only those with the key can decipher. During World War II, cryptography wasn't just important, it was the difference between life and death. For the Nazis, the Enigma Machine was the crown jewel of their encryption technology. It was designed to create messages that were so complex, they seemed unbreakable. Every time a new message was sent, the machine would rearrange its internal settings, creating an almost infinite number of potential encryptions. For the Allies, the Enigma was the greatest challenge they had ever faced. As the war raged on, the Nazis relied on the Enigma for their most sensitive military communications, everything from troop movements to plans for the deployment of weapons. Without being able to decode these messages, the Allies were essentially flying blind. The stakes couldn't have been higher. But what the Nazis didn't know was that their secret weapon might not be as invulnerable as they believed. As the clock ticked down, the race to break the Enigma Code was on, and it wasn't just about who had the best technology or the most skilled soldiers. It was about who had the brightest minds. The Enigma Machine, its name almost sounds like a riddle itself, doesn't it? But this was no mere puzzle. It was a highly sophisticated piece of machinery designed to confuse, conceal, and confound. In its simplest form, the Enigma was a mechanical cipher device, but in reality, it was a complex system of rotors, electrical circuits, and ever-changing settings that made it one of the most formidable encryption tools in history. At the heart of the Enigma was its rotor system. Picture this: a set of rotating wheels, each with 26 letters of the alphabet printed on them. When a key was pressed, an electrical current would flow through a series of these rotors, causing them to spin and alter the message. The real genius of the machine lay in the fact that the configuration of the rotors could change every day, so much so that it made the code nearly impossible to crack by brute force alone. On top of that, each rotor had a wiring configuration that scrambled the letters in ways no human could follow. After pressing one key, the machine would change the setting of the rotors, essentially creating a completely new cipher with each letter typed. It was a constant state of flux, making the task of decoding each message a daunting one. But what really set the Enigma apart was its ability to produce millions of possible combinations. This meant that even if someone intercepted an Enigma-crypted message, they would need to know the exact settings of the machine to decrypt it. The Nazis believed it was impossible for anyone to crack this code. Little did they know, there were minds determined to prove them wrong. As the war progressed, the Enigma Machine became the backbone of Nazi military communication. Its encrypted messages were the lifeblood of their operations, and without it, the Nazis knew they would be vulnerable. But the Enigma was more than just a tool for sending secrets. It was also a symbol of their technological superiority. An ironclad shield that kept their military strategies hidden from the rest of the world, from the battlefield to the high command. Every major Nazi operation relied on the Enigma Machine. The Germans used it to send orders to their U-boats in the Atlantic, to coordinate airstrikes, and even to manage the logistics of their vast military campaigns. And yet, the Allied forces, particularly the British, had no idea what these messages meant. They could intercept the transmissions, yes, but without the key to the code. They were just listening to the sound of military secrets slipping through their fingers. But the Enigma wasn't invincible. The Allies knew that cracking the code could give them an insurmountable advantage. It could reveal troop movements, strategic weaknesses, and even predict enemy actions. That's why it became a race not just for the best equipment or the most powerful weapons, but for the brightest minds capable of breaking this near-impossible encryption. In fact, the very future of the war hinged on this cryptographic battle. Every day that the Allies spent without access to the Enigma Code was another day the Nazis had the upper hand. Time was running out, and the pressure was building. The question wasn't if the code would be cracked, it was when. Imagine being in a race where the finish line is a moving target and every second feels like an eternity. This was the challenge faced by the Allies in their quest to break the Enigma Code. Every day that passed without cracking it meant more lives lost, more cities destroyed, and more chances for the Nazis to tighten their grip on Europe. But the pressure was mounting. So was the resolve of those working in the shadows. The British were the first to truly take the lead in the Enigma code-breaking effort. It wasn't just about brute force. It was about using cunning, strategy, and a deep understanding of the enemy's habits. The team at Bletchley Park, an old manor house tucked away in rural England, became the epicenter of the Allied code-breaking efforts. Here, an eclectic mix of mathematicians, linguists, and even crossword puzzle enthusiasts came together to form one of the most brilliant teams in history. The race was not just about technology. It was a race against time. Every clue, every hint could be the breakthrough they needed. They relied on intercepted Enigma messages, hoping to find patterns that might reveal the machine's settings. But with so many possible configurations, it was like trying to find a needle in a haystack. What really gave the Allies a fighting chance were the mistakes made by the Germans. Human error, whether it was operators reusing key settings or sending predictable messages, created tiny cracks in the Enigma's seemingly perfect armor. And in those cracks, the Codebreakers saw their opportunity. But it wasn't enough yet. The moment of truth was drawing near. The race to break the code had never been more critical. Behind every great breakthrough, there is often a single mind capable of seeing what others cannot. In the case of the Enigma, that mind belonged to Alan Turing. A brilliant mathematician and logician, Turing was the quiet force that would ultimately change the course of the war. His name might not have been widely known at the time, but his work would prove to be one of the most significant contributions to both cryptography and computer science. Turing wasn't just a mathematician, he was a visionary. While others were caught up in the complexity of the Enigma machine's mechanical rotors, Turing focused on something far more abstract: patterns. AT knew that the key to breaking the code wasn't necessarily in the machine itself, but in understanding the fundamental weaknesses of the encryption process. His insight was revolutionary in 1936. Turing introduced the concept of the Turing machine, an abstract model of computation that would lay the groundwork for modern computers. This wasn't just a theoretical exercise, it was a blueprint for how to process information, how to break codes, and how to build machines that could assist in the decoding process. But in 1940, when Turing arrived at Bletchley Park, it wasn't just his mathematical mind that made him indispensable. It was his drive. He was determined to crack the Enigma, not just for the sake of science, but for the war effort. With an obsessive focus and a relentless work ethic, he built the first machine designed to help decode the Enigma's encrypted messages, the Bombe. The Bombe was not just a machine, it was a testament to human ingenuity, it was a step toward the future of computing, and, most importantly, it was the tool that would help shatter the Enigma's secrets. Bletchley Park wasn't just a place, it was a world unto itself. Hidden away from the eyes of the public, it housed the finest minds of the war effort, each working tirelessly toward a singular goal: breaking the Enigma code. The workers there weren't just cryptographers, They were part of a massive, secretive labyrinth where every room and corridor held a piece of the puzzle at Bletchley Park. The days were long, the pressure immense, and the stakes higher than any of the Codebreakers could have imagined. The Codebreakers worked in a constant race against time, often pulling all-nighters, poring over stacks of intercepted Enigma messages, trying to find patterns in the chaos. They didn't have modern computers or even calculators. Everything was done by hand, using primitive machines and sheer mental endurance. It was a war of attrition, and the Codebreakers knew that every day they didn't succeed, more lives were lost. The Bombe machine, built by Turing and his team, was central to their operations. But the bomb wasn't a magic bullet. It was a tool that worked by testing multiple combinations of possible settings for the Enigma machine, looking for a match in the encoded messages. It was, in essence, an early form of what we now know as computing power, but it was no easy task. The team had to decipher the messages by analyzing the crisscrossing paths of logic, a labyrinth of symbols and codes that could confuse even the sharpest minds. It was in these moments of uncertainty that the Codebreakers felt the weight of their mission. They knew that cracking the Enigma Code wasn't just about winning a battle, it was about winning the war. It was a moment of quiet triumph, almost surreal. Considering the years of grinding work, the endless hours of failure and frustration, but finally, in the autumn of 1940, the breakthrough came. The Enigma Code was cracked. It wasn't a dramatic one-time event, but a culmination of tiny victories that added up to one of the greatest achievements in wartime intelligence: the British Codebreakers had been working tirelessly, trying different approaches, running countless tests on the bomb, all while waiting for that one crucial moment when everything would fall into place. And then, as if the universe had shifted, they found the right combination. The first decoded message was a simple one, just a few lines of seemingly ordinary military communication. But to the Codebreakers, it was a revelation. It was the key to unraveling a web of secret Nazi plans. For the first time, the Allies had access to the inner workings of the Nazi war machine. They could read their enemies' messages, anticipate their moves, and turn the tide of battle. The moment the Enigma Code was broken, it was like a veil had been lifted. The Germans, oblivious to the breach, continued to send encrypted messages. But now, the Allies could understand them. Every intercepted communication became a piece of the puzzle. Tactical advantages, hidden in plain sight. The victory wasn't just a military one. It was a moral victory. It proved that human ingenuity could outsmart even the most sophisticated technology. But as thrilling as the breakthrough was, the reality set in. Breaking the code didn't immediately end the war. It was a tool that had to be used wisely, with great care, and at the right moment. The moment the Enigma Code was cracked, the Allies gained an enormous advantage. But with great power comes great responsibility, and the Allies were suddenly burdened with a monumental task: how to use this newfound knowledge without alerting the Germans that their secrets were no longer safe. Every intercepted message had the potential to alter the course of the war. But each also carried the risk of exposure. One of the most critical challenges the Codebreakers faced was ensuring that the Germans never suspected their encryption was compromised. The Nazis had no idea that their messages were being read. The Allies had to be strategic in how they used the intelligence they had gathered. If they acted on the information too quickly or too boldly, it could tip off the Germans and force them to change their encryption methods, rendering all the work of breaking the code useless. This meant that the Allied forces had to make difficult decisions, often withholding information to maintain the element of surprise. For example, in the North Atlantic, knowing the exact location of German U-boats was invaluable. But striking too soon could give away the fact that the Enigma was compromised. It was a delicate balancing act, requiring the utmost discretion. At the same time, the success of breaking the Enigma Code had a far-reaching impact beyond the battlefield. It provided the Allies with a glimpse into the inner workings of Nazi military strategy, giving them a strategic edge that would help turn the tide in key battles, including the Battle of the Atlantic and D-Day. The Codebreakers had proven their worth. Their work would continue to shape the course of the war. But even as the Enigma cracked, The Allies knew one thing for sure: the war was far from over. The legacy of the Enigma Code stretches far beyond the conclusion of World War II. Cracking the code didn't just change the course of a war, it revolutionized the field of cryptography and set the stage for modern computing. But perhaps the greatest legacy of the Enigma Codebreakers is not just the victory they helped secure, but the lessons they taught us about the power of intellect, teamwork, and perseverance. Alan Turing's work on the Bombe machine and the breaking of the Enigma was a pivotal moment in the history of computing. It wasn't just a military victory, it was a glimpse into a new world of possibilities. The bombe was, in many ways, a precursor to the modern computer. Its design and operation laid the groundwork for future developments in technology, inspiring the creation of the first programmable computers in the post-war era. The Enigma Codebreakers also demonstrated the importance of cryptography in the digital age. Today we take for granted the encryption that protects our data, whether it's our bank transactions, personal communications, or online shopping. But back then, cryptography was a well-kept secret, hidden in the shadows of war. The work done by Turing and his team showed that cryptography wasn't just a technical skill, it was a vital tool for national security and global stability. Yet the story of the Enigma Code and its decoders remained classified for decades. Only after the war did the public learn the extent of what had been achieved at Bletchley Park. The secrecy surrounding their work was so tight that many of the key figures in the code-breaking effort, like Turing, never received the recognition they deserved in their lifetimes. Looking back at the unraveling of the Enigma Code, it's impossible not to be awed by the sheer ingenuity, the determination, and creativity that went into the effort. But the story of the Enigma also holds valuable lessons that resonate far beyond the confines of cryptography or wartime espionage. First and foremost, it teaches us about the power of collaboration. The codebreakers at Bletchley Park came from all walks of life: mathematicians, linguists, chess champions, and even crossword puzzle solvers. Yet it wasn't just individual brilliance that led to the success. It was the collective effort, the ability to work together under immense pressure, that turned a team of diverse minds into one of the most successful code-breaking units in history. It reminds us that in the face of overwhelming challenges, teamwork is often the key to victory. The story of the Enigma also teaches us about resilience. Alan Turing, in particular, epitomizes this. Despite facing personal challenges, including his struggles with societal acceptance and the lack of recognition during his lifetime, Turing's work was pivotal in shaping the future of computing. His contributions, though largely unacknowledged, in his time, now form the foundation for the digital world we live in today. His story reminds us that great achievements often come at great personal cost, and the pursuit of truth and progress requires unwavering persistence. Finally, the Enigma story serves as a reminder of the delicate balance between security and transparency in today's world. In our digital age, encryption and secrecy continue to play crucial roles in safeguarding our information. But just as the Enigma Machine was ultimately cracked through human ingenuity, we must continue to ask ourselves, how much should we trust in technology? And how much should we rely on human intellect to navigate the future?